Greetings, Amanda and Beth, and to the imaginary room of my fellow classmates. How's everyone doing? My name is Rain Boris, and this is my final presentation for Bio 104A Natural History. My special place is a section of the Fitzgerald Lake Conservation Area in Northampton, Massachusetts. Owned and managed by the Brook Coalition, Fitzgerald Lake is a total of 855 acres. However, my special place encompasses just 3.83 acres of that land, pictured here. There are two major hills within my 3.8 acres. One is on either side of the stream right here. The first of which is a quite rocky, gentle incline with a narrow trail. It's much shorter but steeper on the west face that goes down towards the stream it shelters. And the landscape enters into a marshy wetland biome with plenty of skunk cabbage lining its banks. After crossing the bridge, the trail opens and winds up to a much longer, rocky, east-facing slope, where it plateaus. A large boulder stands with young tree roots wrapped around it growing from above. I use the location of this boulder as the cutoff point for the area that I'm defining as my special place. And we'll get to see some of these geographical features as I progress through the presentation. Just to be clear, that cutoff point is right over here where my cursor is. That's where the boulder would be. The Halfway Brook Trail is accessible from Coles Meadow Road off of Route 5 and 10 here. Also, along the beginning stretch of Coles Meadow is the back entrance to Laurel Park, where I grew up. My parents moved in when I was 4.5 years old. This stream and the surrounding woods have been as childhood special places throughout my life, ever changing in their relationship to me as I changed, but always remaining as a sort of refuge to find one's truth. You can see here the rules and regulations posted at the start of the trail. You might also notice the white house to the left, and it's important to be respectful when using this entrance to the conservation, especially because of how close the trail runs to the neighbor's house and property. It was cold. The air felt thin, but not incredibly. We walked with the sun in our eyes, holding hands. Crossing the road, we made ourselves to the trail's entrance. Quickly greeted, many songbirds chirp and convene in jubilation as a squirrel scurries up a trunk. The tree was a short but thick hemlock, with branches outstretched directly above my head as I walked across the trail. The entrance to my special place feels tight. The tall fence to number 68 is on our left, and a low, narrow, planked wooden fence runs along the right side of the path. It becomes rocky, somewhat steep, and then a medium-sized boulder one could sit on nicely squeezes the trail with the wood fence and accompanying trees. Here is the view from the top of the first hill. I took these pictures side by side on following days. It snowed lightly for the first day of the year and continued covering everything even further to the next. The difference in lighting is major, as you can see. With the first day being more soft and even, I'm able to capture some details, but it's a bit more of a depressing scene, whereas the next day, everything is more light and colorful. I found some intricate peculiarities along the trail that I thought I'd like to point out. Many of the pictures I took compare larger scenes, which provide a view of the greater forested landscape. Many of the smaller details, such as berries hanging off of a bush, become then lost in such an image. I thought it valuable to take a moment zoomed in to admire the detail present here along the trail. As you can see, we also have a snapped tree trunk and this particular mushroom that never goes away. It's dried out completely and it just stays there every single year, right at the base of that tree. And every time I walk by it, except for around this time of year when it's covered in snow, you get a whiff of like the smell of mushrooms. It's really fascinating how it never goes away. Here are some pictures I took of the wildlife one might encounter here. That's a downy woodpecker up there feeding on the suet, and a gray squirrel atop the wood. I've also seen pileated woodpecker, chipmunks, various song sparrows, chickadee, titmouse, red-backed salamander during the course of my sensory observations here. In Fitzgerald, I've seen deer, bear, fox, beaver, fish, frog, dragonfly. I've also heard owls and had some encounters with ground hornets. There was one time when I came face to face with a large snapping turtle as well. Walking down the path, I begin to breathe deeply and mindfully. These trails connect to the mountain above River Valley Co-op and all over town. I know them like the back of my hand. A short rocky hill peaks before the stream, glistening wet from this morning's rainfall. Descending carefully, I am greeted by the scent of mushrooms before a small bridge, sized only for foot traffic. This little bridge has a one-sided handrail with various woodland creatures engraved, faded yellow paint peeling off their figures. Pictured here we have, from the left to right, a turtle, a fish, a dragonfly, an acorn and an oak leaf, a chicken, a frog, and a beaver. Interesting that a chicken is one of the woodland creatures here on this bridge. From the bridge above, I stare, breathe, listen. Rustling leaves as trees sway. Thick cloud cover opens for a moment, and the canopy above me glows lime green, sunlit by softened rays. In through the nose, out through the mouth. I take slow, powerful breaths, filling my whole body with fresh air, drinking in my surroundings. There is an air of mysticism on the bridge, where so many people have paused their hike to take it all in. Here at these crossroads, there is a gentle ambient wonder, the subtle knowing of what cannot be put into words. Hopping down onto a snow-covered log, I continue to follow the stream bank. Here, I notice more colors from the stream bed, clearly visible under my flashlight. Warm, yellow-brown, sandy mud coats the bottom, with speckles of multicolored pebbles ranging from white to yellow to clay-colored and pitch black. Larger slabs of cool gray-blue slate-colored stone emerge from the bottom as well. Many individual spider silk threads hang down off tree branches, coated in snow and ice crystals. There are many dual-trunked trees along this area and up the trail. It's a common sight within my special place. Because of this, I looked carefully for evidence of fire, but found none. I know it couldn't be logging because my special place is located within conservation land. The largest human impact on this land has been the construction of the bridge which connects both sides of the stream, and the trail that runs across it. I know there was no previous pasture use because all the rocks are scattered about in piles and on the trail. The only fence constructed here is the short wooden fence, which runs parallel to the trail before you reach the boardwalk and bridge. There are no wolf trees, junipers, or red cedars. I walked up and down and around the trail, but found no uphill basal scars indicative of fire. I also looked for an age class discontinuity, but found none. The various trees of the forest appear to be a range of ages, without any prominent gaps between the largest and the smallest ones. Without fire or logging, I hypothesized then that these dual-trunked trees are actually pairs of trees who grew closely together, merging at the base. So with less exposed soil in this area due to the prominence of rock, it seems increasingly likely that trees would be forced to root so closely so often. And here we see the large boulder that I was talking about in the very beginning of the presentation, which marks and designates the end corner of what I'm defining as my special place. While reading the forested landscape, although I did not find any suggestions of past land use history, I've become more conscious of the unique characteristics that make up my special place, unearthed during this assignment. I feel more connected to this forest in particular, having closely examined from the base of trees to the tops of their branches. Wondering about all of these possible events and hunting for clues of their occurrence prompted me to engage differently with nature than how I usually do, which is closer to a sensory observation. The analytical process of forest forensics caused me to activate a different part of my brain and see my special place through fresh, inquisitive eyes. Here, I wanted to display some of the greenery still present at my special place, even in the wintertime. The mosses and lichen that grow covering large rocks here thrive in this location and receive a great deal of their necessary moisture during the colder months. The rocky ground also makes great habitat for critters looking to hunker down at this time of year. Here is a mountain biker who passed me on the trail. I made sure to put the arrows and labeling because, he might blend into the background and be kind of hard to spot. These images also provide a clear view of the bridge crossing Halfway Brook, which I've mentioned so many times in my essays. It is wonderful to see someone else out at this time having fun in the woods around Fitzgerald Lake. And that about closes up my presentation. I do have one more thing to share, but this is the end of the slideshow I've prepared. What we're seeing right here, this mound of rocks, is the entrance to Fitzgerald Lake off of Marion Street. So if we were to look at my very first slide, that entrance is in the lower left-hand corner of this area. And that's about it. So the last thing I have to share is my leaves that I collected. I wanted to make sure to share these because I thought there are some really cool prints. I especially like how these white oak came out. Some of the colors are just really cool. And I wanted to talk briefly about some of the various types of trees that potentially could be there. So over here, this is looking like a willow oak and a red oak hybrid. The other thing that it could also be could be like a swamp oak. Over here is a comparison of some different maple. Here is actually not maple, but maple leaf viburnum, and then that's the Norway maple. So the maple leaf viburnum is kind of like a lower growing foliage. It's not actually a maple tree, but the leaves are so astounding because during the fall, they get like this really cool galaxy kind of pattern on them. And it's faded a bit, to be honest, but sometimes there's like lime green speckles all over that deep maroon color, and it looks so beautiful. Here we have red maple, of course. And then this other one here, which I identified as the swamp white oak. Here we have red oak and some burning bush and something else, possibly possibly a black oak variation, although I'm not 100% on that one. And to end it off, this is black oak. I also want to mention that I did find hemlock and white pine and some American chestnut too that had been stuck in that dying and regrowing process in my special place. However, the preservation efforts failed with hemlock and white pine because after I got them attached to the paper, they just lost all their needles. And it was just like twigs on a piece of paper. So I scrapped it and decided to not include it. But I did want to mention that I found those species present there as well. So yeah, that's all I have to share. Hope you enjoyed my presentation. Have a great day.